I am Vinnie Tortorich, and folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent when we start this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. This is a Friday show, and we have a special guest coming on today. And you want to know what we're going to talk about? Anyone cares what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about this.
Beef stroganoff.
That's right. That's right, Sam. What else are we going to talk about?
Beef bourguignon.
There you go, Sam. What else you got?
Irish beef stew.
Oh, yeah.
Beef brisket.
Ooh.
Chateaubriand.
Chateaubriand. Boy, Sam, we're really going for it today. What else you got?
Sauerbraten.
Oh, boy. I love me some braten. Come on. Sauerbraten. What else you got? You got some beef Diane, Sam. What do you got?
Beef. Catalonian beef ragu.
Ooh.
Mongolian beef.
Yeah.
Chicken fried steak.
Yeah.
Steak Diane.
That's what I like, Sam. I like the steak Diane. That's my favorite. What else you got, Sammy?
Steaks balsamico.
Oop. No one ever has that anymore. I don't even know what that is. If it wasn't for Sam Elliott, I would have no idea what that is. What else you got, Sam?
Hamburgers.
Ooh, everybody likes a hamburger. I want a hamburger. I weep for vegans because they never get a hamburger.
Sizzling beef.
Ooh.
Spicy braised
Yeah.
beef. Barbecue beef ribs.
Oh, yeah.
Beef Wellington. Pepper beef. Beef jerky. Beef with broccoli. Beef burritos.
You know what? People, beef with broccoli. I call that beef with beef jewelry around it. Beef and broccoli. Yeah, I like to have some jewelry around my beef sometimes. So I'll put a little broccoli. People think, oh, look at him. He's having a broccoli. That's healthy. What you got,
Beef
Sam?
fajitas.
Oh, yeah.
Beef
Mexican.
tacos.
That's Mexican too.
Do you see where I'm going with
No,
this?
where are you heading, Sam?
Beef.
Oh.
It's what's for dinner.
Yeah, folks, the guy we're going to have on today, he knows a little something about beef. He's been around for a while. He goes by the name of Texas Slim. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Vinny, it's good to see you. Good to hear you. I appreciate you having me on the show.
I said this, you and I had a phone conversation about a week ago. And I think my first question to you, and I was being sincere when I said this, how do you get a name like Slim? How does that happen? That's like the coolest shit ever. You can't give yourself that name, right?
No, you can't. I mean, that's one thing you never do is give yourself a nickname. I mean, that's pretty, it's not a pretty sight if you do that.
Yeah. It was crazy. And like, and if you ever saw the show Seinfeld, George wants to be called something, right?
Exactly.
He wants to be called T-Bone, again, steak, right?
Right.
But they started calling someone else T-Bone. And so they started calling him Coco because he was making, you ever see that episode?
I did. I remember that now. Yeah. Give me a flashback there.
Exactly. They started calling him Coco because he was itching under his arm and there was a famous gorilla named Coco. I don't know if you remember that, who they taught to like communicate with humans. So they called him Coco. So in order for him to not be called Coco, he went out and found a woman named Coco. So they would take it. You can't make this stuff up.
It's so true, though. It's so true.
Now, look, I came from Louisiana. You're from Texas. And my thing is you must be from Texas because you are, in fact, Texas Slim.
Exactly.
I grew up in Louisiana where it's oppositeville. Like if you got a guy that's 400 pounds, like he's wider than he is tall, they'll call that guy Slim.
Oh, I mean, it's like fighting for it. That's their number one goal is to be called Slim, and they work at it very hard. It is that joke that you have, and we've all known Slim, right?
Oh, yeah.
We've all known him in our lives. I mean, I've known several of them, and it's kind of a joke, but with me, it's totally the opposite. I would guarantee you.
So yeah, you're tall and lean.
I am tall and lean. I'm like 6'1" about, I broke my neck a couple of times, so I kind of shrunk a little bit, but I'm about 6'1", 178 pounds, and I've always been slim. So that's just how it is. Not skinny. I mean, I grew up farm tough. It's just slim.
Yeah. Farm tough. That's another ad that I think Sam Elliott did.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
That's it. Yeah, I'm just a big Sam Elliott. I just walk around in my head wishing, because I have such a quirky voice that I've always wanted to be like Sam Elliott. You know,
I think everybody does, right? I mean, he's in all kinds of different movies and different genres. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He has the voice.
Well, he's got the voice. He's good looking. He can wear. It might have been Sam Elliott for Chevy. True. I can't remember. Let's see if I can find one here. But Sam Elliott is one of those guys where, you know, if you or me, if we had a mustache, people would just go shave that thing off. Just go. You look like a child molester. Just go get it off now, right?
1970s porn star. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very bad.
I had one in the early 80s. All the football players had stashes, right? And I was no different. Jack Lambert had one. You know, all the guys, you know, the big guy. But Sam Elliott, he can pull off that stash like there's nobody's been. Let's see if this is the Chevy commercial right here. Let's see if we got it here. I mean, come on.
That's just perfect. I mean, come on. It just, it stands the test of time, does it not?
What are you handing down to your children? God, Sam.
And he has the mustache. He doesn't look right if he's not wearing his mustache. I mean, he has to have that mustache.
Yeah, and here we go. Here we go. Here's Sam again. Let's see if we can do it again. You know, I'm just noticing this for the first time in my life.
What's that?
He was just doing a rock ad, right? Okay, you ready for this? You ready for this, Slim? Legendary stuff is between these bumpers. Who do you think he's talking about? Chevy?
No, he's not. Is he?
Hang on.
Is he doing it?
Let's see who he's talking about.
Did he switch?
I don't think people understand how this works. They weren't using Sam Elliott, the actor. They were using Sam Elliott, the voiceover, VO.
Gotcha.
So he's just, you know, tough sounding truck guy. I wonder if he does any Ford. I wonder if he did all three.
It might have been a goal. After he got on two of them, he's like, well, let's go for all three.
But hang on, I didn't even know about this one. Come on. I mean, the guy, like any kind of manly man thing, it's Sam Elliott, right?
Like I said, it's a test of time. And this is going to go for decades. It can't stop. I mean, he's doing 1883 right now, you know, the prequel to Yellowstone. They actually filmed up here in the panhandle of Texas. And so that was kind of a big thing up here because he was like downtown Amarillo and everybody was all starstruck.
Had I known that, I would have been there. I would. Oh, Sam,
you should have. Yeah, I mean, he was hanging around town and everything. So,
no, he's that kind of guy. I think he lives up in Oregon or something like that. But look, now you know we have this toxic masculinity and the whole thing. So I'm not sure if he even has that career anymore. I don't know how that works in the world of let's hate men. You know, whatever.
Exactly.
I don't know. The first time I heard toxic masculinity, I was like, what are we doing again? And
where are we shifting here? What's the new signal?
Yeah, it's
catch
like,
up.
Is there a whistle, or are we whistling at dogs, or what are we doing with this masculine? Now, I'm saying that for a reason because, you know, I don't do politics on this podcast. There's no room for politics in my world. But
Thank you.
I was in, because I don't care if you're on the right or the left. I'm just happy you're an American. We're all in this together, you know.
Sure.
I don't believe in any. It's not my president. No, it's all of our president. You don't have to like our presidents or whatever. You know, I don't get into politics. So, but vegans always accuse me of, since I'm a meat eater, that I must be on the right. And I don't know. It's like, and I'm saying that because they'll say, yesterday, a vegan was just coming out at me whole cloth on my Twitter going, oh yeah, with your manly man beef eating. Oh, it's so man. You need to feel like a man. And I'm like, how did you put those two together because I'm squinting real hard and I can't get there. I'm trying to get there. And I can't squint any more than I'm squinting right now. Crow's feet are building up as I speak. Hey, do you see any of this, Slim, in your world?
I see it everywhere. I mean, it's social engineering at its best. I mean, there's a big old deception going on, and you know, it's turning into pop culture right now. And you know, with the type of propaganda that we get in, you know, our basically society these days, it's kind of funny and fascinating to watch because it's based on so much that are lies that they're able to manipulate into some form of truth for people. And when they come after you, they really, you understand that they are so far detached of knowing what true food is that it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, this woman, sometimes unless they're being very, very vile, I'll leave them. People will say to me, Vinny, just cut them off, just block them. And I'll just let them talk because I believe in free speech.
Sure.
Okay. I'll just let them talk. But when they start getting vile and start getting angry and just cluttering up my Twitter too much, I'll get rid of them. But this woman was just going on and on for 2 days. I'm a 26-year vegan, and we could get all the same proteins from spirulina that you could get from beef. And I'm sitting there going, okay, categorically, that's not even close to true. You can get every amino acid. It's even better. It's twice as good as beef, right from pea protein. Categorically wrong.
100%.
Not even close. And it goes on, and they're just spewing this. And I guess they figure if they say it enough times and they say it loud enough, then it becomes a fact.
Sure. Of course it does. Perception is reality for a lot of people. So I mean, especially in the world we live in these days, and once again, the confusion of it is the truth of the matter does not even factor into anything anymore. Logic is taken out of things, and people really don't even understand history as far as how we got here. And you can break it down pretty simple. And we got here by eating pure animal protein. And that's as simple as that. Throughout the history books, throughout biblical times, anywhere you look, we got here by animal protein.
Except for when they tell the story, they'll just say, no, that didn't happen. And then they'll say something. They'll say, well, this is my truth. Okay, the term
Awesome.
my truth. This is my truth. No, look, I grew up in a world of absolutes.
Sure.
You did too. We're
100%.
Right? So I mean,
yep.
There are absolutes out there. There's not my truth and your truth. There is the truth. There's a universal truth. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, that's the only thing that we start with is truth. And in that balance that you have to understand of what truth really is something that is lost. So go ahead.
I'm building a kayak right now out of wood, cedar strip kayak. Okay. And the fact of the matter is that each piece of wood, we have to sit there and meticulously do what's called a rolling lap or a shiplap. But my friend Adam Carolla says it's called shiplap, but it's a rolling bevel.
Sure.
Each strip has to fit to the next strip perfectly, right? They need to butt up against each other. Sometimes we'll take a flashlight on our phones or whatever and put it underneath the wood to see if any light's coming through.
100%.
This thing, it needs to butt up against the other piece of wood. Now, if I sat there with someone and I said, well, look, you left some gaps in that wood, and they will go, I don't see gaps. And I go, yes, but there are gaps. And if you leave those gaps, that boat's going to sink. And they'll say, well, that boat's not going to sink because I don't see gaps. And I'll go, but there are gaps. And they'll say, but I don't see gaps. And it's like, but there are. So I'm telling you there are. And they'll say, I don't see them, and that's my truth. Okay, let's take your truth. Let's head over to the lake, hop in your truth, and let's see if you get wet or not. Right? There's a universal truth there. I see daylight between the grooves. If I can see light, that means water can seep through. right? The only way for a boat to work is that no water gets in, right? That's just physics, right? You have to displace water. You're making a hole in water. You're displacing water when you sit in a boat. Can we both agree on that, Slim?
100%.
But
By far.
But if you said to me, you know what? I'll just have a bunch. I can see a lot of daylight, but you know what? Daylight can come through. But in my truth, even though daylight can pass through, water is denser than light. That's a truth, right?
Sure. Right.
That's an absolute. We know that water is denser than light, but they can both come through a crack in wood. The boat's going to sink. So you can have your truth, but it ain't the truth. There's a universal truth. If you try to go paddle that thing, it's going to fucking sink.
Yeah.
So that's the universal truth. And this is what we deal with every day in the world now. There's no true media. You know, we have, everyone's got a mic, everyone's got a camera, and everyone can put something on the internet and go, look, here you go. I've had people tell me, oh, Vinnie did a movie Beyond Impossible, talking about the impossible. Did you see my movie yet?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
All right. Did you see any lies in that movie? Give me your opinion.
There's a lot of it's a lot of damn truth is what it is. And what as far as, okay, what we said before is that perception is reality. And anymore with the type of social engineering that we've got going on here, I mean, this is something that is always been a coordinated attack. We're in an information war. And so therefore you don't have to really agree what truth is anymore. But one thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to live with your truth. And so that's how I basically frame it when I have this discussion with anybody, like you explained, is that, you know, I'm going to let you have your truth and we're going to see who comes out. Okay. You have to, my type of truth, you have to have some proof of work. And if you do not perform that proof of work, you're going to find out what you're doing is a little deceptive or it's not based on the truth. So that's kind of how it's evolved with me and my kind of dialogue. And it works. I mean, I just don't even have the argument with people anymore. It's just like, I wish you well, bless your heart.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, bless your heart's a Southern way of saying you're a fucking idiot.
Pretty much. Yeah,
that's what that means in Southern speak.
Yeah, I got a little sarcasm to that. So
yeah. And look, I mean, it's just a fact of, you know, that we're going through this and people, you know, I've had vegans say, oh, his movie is complete propaganda and he's bought and paid for by the beef industry. And I'm saying to vegans, please, 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 please go to the beef industry and beg them to send me a check. Because if I'm bought and paid for by the beef industry, where in the hell is my check? Because I haven't seen it yet. They think my movie's a propaganda movie that was paid for by the beef industry.
You know what that's called? That's freaking displacement of guilt. That's what people usually do. And they're very good at that. So they're going to come at you and accuse you of something that they pretty much already do on their side of the coin. So that's all that is. When they're saying that about the beef industry sponsoring you, that's how, once again, how detached they are from food and knowing what food is and knowing what global corporations are that are basically a one world food group that is making people sick and making the United States basically metabolically bankrupt. And you know that. I mean, that's where you come from. I mean, so you see it. So I mean, it's obvious. So I mean, where do we go from here, right?
Well, that's why we have you on the show. I think one of the things, and I tell me if I'm speaking out of term here, Slim, but one of the things you and I agree on is, and it's one of the things I think we agree with the vegans on, is factory farming and this kind of, you know, high-end factory farming stuff. Can you explain the difference between that and, you know, small farms and grass-fed farms? And can you explain that world in a way that people can understand it?
Yeah, I mean, we can start. I mean, we've always had problems in agriculture in this country. So you can kind of go back as far as the turn of the century of 1900s and led up to The Dust Bowl. I mean, we came in the Great Plains in the Llano Estacado, where I come from in Texas, the Texas Panhandle. There was a lot of wheat. We grew a lot of damn wheat, and that basically led to the Dust Bowl. Well, we were tilling the ground wrong. Well, and so we'd gotten away from regenerative practices, and we kind of recovered from that, and went through World War II and everything, and basically we did pretty good with farming and ranching all the way through World War II. A lot of things happened during that time. We had gold confiscation in this country. We had the Dust Bowl. We had the Great Depression. And then we had a government that came in and kind of bailed a lot of things out. At that time, people were pretty independent in the way they could with the land itself. And as we moved away from World War II, we were building bombs, and we had to do something with all this technology that we built during World War II, and that was fertilizer. So we learned how to fertilize the ground. And so agriculture changed in the 50s, and it changed in the 60s. And then in the 70s, you had the Nixon administration. We went off the gold standard, and we changed government, and our monetary system got debased in a way that we'd never seen. To do that, we had to devalue a lot of things where we had come from. Our base layer foundation of strength in this country came from agriculture. It came from animal protein. Well, during the 70s, you had a guy named Eric Butts came up, and he said, you're going to go big or you're going to go home. And thus we basically created the monocropping industry. That's what we said back then. We were going to feed the world. And so we had to go fence to fence, and we had to quit basically doing regenerative farming in the United States for the majority of kind of the turn of after the World War II. Well, with that became big corporations. We had many chemical corporations started combining together, and one of those was Monsanto. We have Cargill, and right now a lot of things are underneath the Bayer umbrella. So these chemical companies basically kind of engineered the monocropping model, and when they did that, they were able to create genetically modified seeds. They were able to create new pesticides, new herbicides, all kinds of chemical treatments that basically and in the end landed up in our digestive systems. And throughout the last 50 years, that's what we've been stuck with. And right now, people have basically been so far detached from the way that our grandparents used to eat and feed themselves that what we have to do right now is I'm bringing a lot of food intelligence into the discussion so people can understand where we get our food is not where you think it is. The amount of touch points that our whole food that we do grow in this country, and how many different places it has to go to get processed, and how many global corporations have a hand in that are making profit, that by the time that we actually do consume that food on the consumption model that is the industrial food complex, we are basically nothing but the trash can. We have lost our nutritional value in our food. We've been inundated with all kinds of seed oils, as you know, high fructose corn syrup, refined sugar. I mean, you name it, we've got it ingested into our food system. A lot of people don't understand the vastness of that and how many subsidies and commodities and kind of food manipulation and in the price markets, what happens with all of that. Once again, we're just the product in the end to recycle that garbage. And that's what I'm trying to educate people is like, let's take a step back. Let's get to the source of the seed of who we are, why we desire what we desire, so we can take a look at food and basically get nutritionally sound like our grandparents were. Let's look at the beef industry.
Go back a little bit. You mentioned the name that I hadn't heard before, and I'd like to know a little bit about this guy. Who is Eric Butts, and what was his contribution to what you were just talking about?
Well, he's got a pretty interesting story. You know, he was in the agricultural department, you know, under Nixon. And so this was at a time where government was pretty corrupt. The dollar was debased. There was a lot of things coming at the United States government. And he really did help engineer basically the agricultural shift in the United States, thus really creating a model across the world that they've been trying to follow all these years.
Yeah, and Nixon, but of course, he was in office late 1960s through the early 70s. And by the way, Nixon, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, he also, we had the sugar shortage. I want to say around 71 or 72, and he started making deals with Japan, if I'm not mistaken, and that's when the whole high fructose corn syrup thing started. We started using that instead of sugar. And then we got hooked on a brand new thing that was even worse than sugar, high fructose corn syrup. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I do not. I mean, I do know what you're talking about, but to go deep into it, it'd be irresponsible. But there was an introduction of a lot of those fake commodities into our food market right there around 71. So that is the truth.
Yeah. I wish I had more, I'm gonna have to do a whole show on that at some point, but I remember the sugarcane problem in Louisiana. There was a lot of hurricanes that came through. I was living in Louisiana. My cousins are all in the sugarcane business. And there was that whole thing where the sugar prices skyrocketed, and people like Coca-Cola and all these companies that use nothing but sugar needed a cheaper alternative. And that's when they went to high fructose corn syrup. And then they never went back because they went, wait a minute, this is even sweeter than sugar. And it's cheaper than sugar. And sugar is like the cheapest thing there is. So then they got even greedier with their products, going, hey, we can make another buck on this stuff. So why not just go in this direction? That's why, just to give you millennials and you kiddies, you all heard about Mexican Coke. They still use real sugar in Mexican Coke. They use cane sugar. That's what the old Coke used to taste like. People still like that one better, right?
By far. There's no question about it.
So yeah, if you think I'm making this stuff up, the Mexican. And by the way, speaking of seed oils, and there's a couple of other questions I want to go back and talk about touch points and what have you.
Sure.
Seed oils. We had another thing happen, and I want to say in the 80s, where this millionaire from the Midwest, and I can't remember his name, had a heart attack and then decided that saturated fat and animal fat was the reason. So he lobbied the fast food companies. He got McDonald's to jump first.
Sure.
To take tallow out of the fryers and put seed oils in, now weaponizing the potatoes. Again, if you remember French fries from McDonald's when you were a kid, they were golden brown and crispy on the outside. And when you cracked it, it was almost like you could crack it open and it was this fluffy potato on the inside. Now it's like a bag of mush, right? You have these seed oils just drowning what used to be a French. So they took something, an unhealthy food, a French fry, and made it worse. If it was possible to make a French fry worse, they did it, right?
100%. I mean, you look at that and, there's a story behind the cholesterol and that it was, animal fats were bad for the heart. That goes all the way back to the conversation goes back when Eisenhower had a heart attack in 1954 and the nation was shocked that, their warrior soldier was, had a heart attack. How could this happen?
It was 56 or 50.
Was it 56?
Yeah, that's in my first movie, Fat, a documentary.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we do that, but go on.
Yeah, but you know the story. And so, he smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day. Yeah. And so they got onto, Ansel Keys was the guy that really started moving for anti-animal fats, and cholesterol was bad for you. And he was very good with the politicians. And so there was a lot of lobbying that did go, take place then. So that's kind of the story behind that.
Well, look, I mean, Ansel Keys, he had started his melee, the 7-country studies and all that came after Eisenhower. But that didn't even, because John Yudkin was saying, look, John Yudkin was over in Europe and in England. He was going, it's not saturated fat, it's not beef fat, it's sugar. Sugar is a problem. But Ansel Keys was a bully, and he was in the United States, and he had more yank with the politicians, as you put it. And he was able to push his folks. Keep this in mind when you start thinking about stuff that's going on in the world today. We were just following the science back then. Okay. You get what I'm getting at here? You're picking up when I'm putting down, kids. We were following the science that didn't exist. That did not exist. But we started listening to Ansel Keys. But I don't know if you know this part of the story. And if you watch Fat, a documentary, the original movie I put out, it wasn't really taking hold in the 1960s. That's why I tell everyone, go look at all the kids, all the hippie kids at Woodstock in 1968. You cannot find the fat person. Mama Cass Elliott was the only fat person, and by today's standards, she was thin. Mama Cass Elliott. Everybody else, perfectly thin. You couldn't find, people were ripped like they had been doing sit-ups, right? Okay. We started, the Democrats in 1968, I'm not picking on Democrats. I don't pick on either side. They were trying to figure out food stamps. The Kennedys, they went, if we could get more people, if we could get them free food, they'll keep voting for us, right? So we need to figure out food stamps. So McGovern started the McGovern Committee, right? This is at the same time you got Nixon in office. You got him doing his thing with, everything you talked about. You got everything going on with high fructose corn syrup. Now you have the McGovern Committee that's studying starvation in the United States. Now, like most things in the government, it didn't take them a few weeks or a few months or a few years. It took them 10 years. They met for 10 years. The McGovern Committee, this is a fact, folks. This is not my truth, went on for 10 years. Okay. And at some point, Ansel Keys went, wait a minute, I can weasel my ass into that and start pushing this initiative that we should be off of saturated fats. Meats are not good. By the way, Ansel Keys ate meat until the day he died. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
That's a fact. That's a fact. He was cited as saying many times when people would see him in restaurants, they were going, Ansel, you're having a steak. What is this? And he would go, cereals for the poor people.
Mm-hmm.
He was that much of an asshole, right?
Has anything changed though? I mean, even the people that really do, I mean, the top people, the brass of, financial markets and everybody,
yeah.
They can, they're out there eating the best beef in the world.
Yeah, they're doing whatever they want to do, but they're trying to tell everyone
sure,
else.
Of course.
But at the end of the McGovern Committee, Ansel Keys had done a 7-country study by that point. They had all this fake data because 7-country study was fake data.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know that, but that was fake data.
It was.
He studied 21 or 27 different countries or 25. I can't remember the exact number. He was only able to squint really hard and get 6 of those countries to fit his model, kind of. Mm-hmm. But he said, you know what? I need to get one more in there because I studied 21 countries. I need to get at least 1/3. So he sent his people back to Crete over in Greece during Lent. When
of course,
a bunch of Christians there, they're not eating meat because it's Lent. And they took another look at Crete and they went, oh, the Cretans, they don't eat meat.
No, they don't eat meat. Yeah.
Look how healthy
Olives.
they are. No,
yeah. Look.
These people ate meat around the clock except for 40 days a year because they believed that a Jew somehow died, went to heaven, came back, and walked on water and everything else. Okay, great. So now you got 7 countries.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Seal the deal.
Yeah. Done. And then the McGovern Committee, and I have this in my movie. You have to see it. Truth is fiction. At the end, they literally, you see guys sitting around the table after 10 years, they throw their hands up and go, let's just say meat is bad. And one of the guys go, I really think we need to study this anymore. And they were like, nah, yeah, we're good. Let's just go with this. That was in 78. And then in the 80s, they came up with, let's take from this and that, we'll create a pyramid. And we haven't been thin or healthy since.
We haven't. It's been one of the biggest we're both, I'm Gen X, you're Gen X, I guess, around about.
How old are you?
54.
I'm 59 and I call us the nowhere generation.
Yeah.
You're at the end of the nowhere generation. Do you know what I mean by nowhere generation?
Sure. Yeah.
We were never marketed to. Okay.
Never.
Okay.
We were an afterthought.
Yeah. Well, they went right from, we were like at the tail end of, the baby boomers. We're not really boomers. And we're not the ones that came behind us. So they said, you know what? There's a 5 or 6 year period of these guys. They quietly get their stuff done. They wear Hanes white t-shirts and Levi 501s, and they seem to be happy with Chuck Taylors on their feet. We're not going to market, Madison Avenue never marketed to us. They just went, let's go past these guys. But you see, we're the ones that are still making the noise.
Exactly.
The Mike Rose of the world, the Adam Carollas of the world, the Texas Slims of the world. We're the ones that are making noise, going, hey guys, we were quietly in the margins looking around going, wait a minute. We're looking at both sides going, something ain't right. Something's wrong here.
Yeah. That you paint a perfect picture there. A lot of people really don't know how to kind of do that kind of type of reflection and give that visual, because that seems like ever since I was a little kid, I observed a lot, and and I've been around the world a couple of times. I'm not rich. I've never had a lot of money. I've just had a wanderlust, and going around the world a couple of times and seeing how it was almost like you were invisible, but you were always observing what was going on around you in a different way. And I've always had that kind of capability just because of my age. And you're right. I mean, I always identified that growing up in certain ways that, hey, this is a little bit different from what I see, from the boomers, from my parents, from the hippies and all this. We were just kind of stuck there. And one thing I do remember, though, is that pop culture really did pick up whenever we were teenagers. And it was pretty cool because we were able to really visualize entertainment in a way that we'd never been able to. So our life became, a video, and it really did. And that's how we kind of pointed our attention spans and everything like that. So it was fascinating times for me. I mean, I don't know if that's kind of what your story is, but I remember growing up small town Texas and going back to being farm tough is that we got our shit done. You had to do this. I mean, there was no questions. Where I grew up, and this is kind of some humor here, you'd be do something pretty stupid, and they would tell you, boy, you couldn't pour piss out of a boot. Now, can you? Yeah. And so you learned to you had to basically show up every day of your life. And, you don't see that anymore. And it's not a judgment, but it is an observation that needs to be looked at.
Well, but Slim, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
you're fine.
I grew up on the bayou. CCR wrote songs about me.
Sure.
I was literally born in a shotgun shack. That is a fact. And that shotgun shack was a quarter of a mile away from a bayou. That is another fact. Okay.
Perfect.
So I was delivered by a doctor named Dr. Sheck Snyder on Railroad Avenue. He had a little one-room house. It was a shotgun house that he called his doctor's office. And as the crow flies, Bayou Lafourche is about a quarter of a mile from there. It's just right over. It might be half a mile, but I think it's a quarter of a mile. I was born on the bayou in a shotgun shack. There's songs that
that's amazing. I mean, there you go.
So just like you, had it not been for a scholarship, when I was getting scholarship offers to play football, when I visited Oxford, Mississippi, right? Ole Miss. I went, okay, these guys they have, skull stains on the side of their truck, just like I do. When I went to LSU, everyone thought I was just going to go to LSU. It was in my backyard. Okay, these guys have F-100s with skull stains on them. I don't know if people know what a skull stain is. It's when you would spit out the window of your truck, it would just leave like a little splatter on the side.
You just gave me a big flashback.
Yeah, but mine wasn't a skull thing. Mine was a red man thing. And, I went, what? And then I went to Tulane for a visit. I wasn't even planning on it. I just went there because it's like, it's a free trip. It's New Orleans for the weekend, and they allow you to take a friend. I did it for my buddy, Danny Barry, God rest his soul. And we went that weekend and we had a great time. And I started looking around going, I don't see anyone chewing tobacco here. I don't see very many F100s. I don't see, you see, most people don't know, folks, I'm not forgetting it. There were F100s before there were F150s, by the way. That's what it is. And I'm looking around going, wow, these kids are different. I need to know what these kids are up to. Right. And I just became enamored with looking at everything else, looking at things a different way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to be, I thought rich people didn't know what a good watch was. This is a true story, Slim. I tell it on the podcast all the time. I thought that Timex was the best watch in the world because John Cameron Swayze would put it on the bottom of a set of skis.
Right.
And, you know, it would take a licking and keep on taking the Timex.
I remember that.
Best watch in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these kids all wore a Timex knockoff called a Rolex.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they don't even know what the best watch is. I had no idea.
Not a clue, did you?
Not a clue.
Never seen one in your whole life.
Rolex. And then when someone told me, it's like, oh, that's a Rolex. And I was like, is it like a Timex? They're like, no, dude, that's like $1,000 watch. I'm like, who would pay $1,000 for a watch? You know,
Right.
Well, you could build a sundial for free. You just need a stick. You put it in the ground, sundial. You know?
Yeah. Common sense stuff, right?
Yeah.
Common sense stuff.
But you see, our generation, we didn't know, but we were observing. And I'll never forget when I started making some pretty good money. My buddy said to me, he goes, you know, you should buy yourself a BMW. And I went, yeah, let me think about that. And I went to the BMW dealership. It was in my 20s. And they were talking about the leather, and it's got real wood in there and all this kind of stuff. And oh my God, BMW. And it didn't even smell like American-made cars. It smelled like leather and wood. And I'm like, oh my God, man. I think I got a half an erection sitting in that car.
Right.
And I was driving home after looking at that car going, yeah, I need to get one of those. And then just like what guys like you and I do, Slim, I looked around and I said, wait a minute. If I buy that car, I'm going to have to change the way I dress. Because I don't dress like a BMW guy. I would look at my friends, and my friends, they weren't just driving BMWs. They were going to wine tastings. I didn't wine taste. What? I was still running to the swamps on a weekend to go get some deer hunting done.
Exactly. You're just being a hick. And I mean, you're just being a hick.
Exactly. And I started thinking of that going, okay, I'm not going to go to a wine tasting. I'm going to still go hunting on the weekends. You can't strap a deer to the hood of a BMW.
Yeah.
You know, so you see what I'm saying? It's like we never got out of what we were doing. We always somehow towed a line while we were looking at the rest of the world around us.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, this is a good segue for me, if you don't mind, because you just gave me a good, I left a small town, Texas, up in North Texas when I was around 19 years old. I had $150 in my pocket and I drove to Austin, Texas. I knew one person in Austin, Texas. My father had great father, you know, he gave me a great core belief system and everything. But when I was in high school, I had scholarships as well, and I was going to play football. It didn't work out. He had an accident. He broke his back. Oof. And so we went into financial times in the wrong times, you know, whenever I was graduating. So I just said, screw it. I'm going to go do my thing in Austin. I always loved it. It's a cool little city at the time and had a lot of water and hills. And I come from the flatlands. So it was an oasis to me. But I had no money. I didn't have anything except, you know, what I'd grown up with, you know, kind of that sense, you know, that observational science that we get and that I think I developed very well. Well, I couldn't afford to go to UT. So I had a bunch of friends that were on West Campus, and it's right next to the university, the 40 acres there. And so I said, well, I'm just going to go to class. I'm just not going to take tests or anything. So I got to go to the university as much as I wanted to. Yeah. And I just, you know, I went in and sat in classes and just kind of had the college life, but I was out playing golf and bartending as all my friends were trying to pass university. And I was learning business. I was learning the bar industry. I was learning a lot of different things. And then I'd started traveling and working across the United States in a couple of resorts. And, that just turned into a lifestyle that I've never let go of. I've dabbled in, technology for a couple of decades, but I never changed anything about, where I came from. And with the Beef Initiative, I'm just bringing all that experience and saying, this has got to change. And we're going to do this way, because this generation that you and I am, we had the means to do that. I've seen success and how we can start from the ground up and really make changes across this nation. So,
I want to talk about the beef initiative now, but right before we do that, folks, I need to tell you guys about the best olive oil on the planet, Villa Cappelli. Villa Cappelli olive oil, the longest running sponsor on this show. This is how much I believe in Villa Cappelli. I have a vitamin company, and when you make vitamin D, you have to hook it to an oil. Most companies that make vitamin D hook it to the cheapest oil they can get their hands on. Usually it's a seed oil. Now, I get it. Vitamin D doesn't have enough seed oil in there to do anything to cause a problem. But for me, it's just the fact that they do it and it's wrong. You're trying to take something good for yourself and it's something bad. That's why we put Villa Cappelli over at purevitaminclub.com. We put Villa Cappelli with our vitamin D3. That's how much I believe in this product. When I'm on my kayak, I'll take vials of this. I'll just put a little salt in a little 2-ounce vial on my kayak and just drink it down while I'm out there yakking away. That didn't sound right, but what I meant to say was kayaking away. And Villa Cappelli, man, just the best olive oil. They also have herbs and rubs and salts and everything else. Go check out everything at villacappelli.com. When you get to checkout, there's 3 ways to save. Number 1, put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, and you'll get what? Oh, just 10% off. And if you spend more than $100 after the discount, you'll get free shipping. Now, think about that. If you buy a 3-liter 10 of olive oil, that's a lot of money because it's heavy to ship it, right? So spend about $115. By the time you get the 10% discount, it'll still be over $100. You'll get free shipping. Bim, bam, boom, you win. Villa Cappelli olive oil, promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, no wimpy Y. You'll get 10% off every single time. We are talking to Texas Slim. The guy's had a fascinating life. He came to my attention because he started this company called the Beef Initiative. I guess my first question, Slim, is, look, we're basically empty nesters here.
sure.
And we do well enough to where one of the things we afford ourselves is, really great beef from some of these small farms. I hear from people all the time, hey, I got 3 kids in school and this and that. We can't buy this beef. Should I be buying beef from a grocery store? Is that factory beef? What's the difference? What am I getting? What am I giving up? Answer that first, and then we'll move from there.
Well, I mean, if that's all you have is to buy beef from a store, of course, you're going to buy beef from a store. And if you can buy beef from a producer that is local to you, then there's been no question that that's what you should do. And there's so many reasons and things to unpack there just because of the differences. And, we can dissect basically the way that beef at the supermarket gets to you. And we can dissect the way that a local processor producer will, provide that beef. And, we could talk for the next 2 days. So let's do it.
All right. So when people go, factory farming, what are we talking about? Let's start with that. What does that mean?
Well, factory farming is just basically, cattle. It's such a diverse market. Cattle, just in general, the United States, say North America. I mean, factory farming is basically, a commodity based, subsidy based type of business that these cattle create a industry that basically is the chemical and the grain industry. And so they use grains and chemicals in certain ways to raise the cattle, and they process those cattle in certain ways. And there's certain global corporations that those corporations are, for the processing centers in the United States, this, they process 85% of all of our animal protein, somewhere right around in there. And so that is factory farming. It's heavy industrial type of farming, the animal, that basically started really picking up steam after 1970s. It had already started in many ways, but ever since the 1970s, we've basically centralized that type of market, which is the beef industry market, into a way to where, it has to be a factory type of setting to make any profits, any yields, to control the manipulation of what's going on actually with that animal itself.
Okay. And just to be clear, some people, that's all they can afford.
Sure.
It's still good meat.
Of course it is. It's not, it's not poison. It's nothing like that. Where is the parameter? Where do you put that bar? It's up to the individual to be able to basically get the best education about the meat first, and then to be okay with, consuming it. And, you have to do that with every animal protein industry. The pork market is different than the beef market. The fowl market is, that they're all different industries. Whenever they started going pretty bad as far as what type of quality you can get at the supermarket, was when the processing centers were able to combine. And we had, Tyson becoming, it was doing fowl and chicken, and all of a sudden they were in the beef industry as well. And so you had a lot of overlap that has not done really good for the industries. But if that's what you have, sure, you can have a very good life, eating that supermarket beef. That is not without question, you can. What you will always be presented with is price manipulation, and really the labeling laws have gone so bad that you really do not know where that beef came from.
Yeah, that's the thing that bothers me, is not knowing where the beef started, and the labeling thing is a problem. We get locally sourced beef here.
Sure.
I live in an area, there's even our grocery store has a good butcher, right? We have a few grocery stores, they all have good butchers in the grocery store. And we have some La Boucheries just around town, as the French would call them, where we could get great beef. But man, I got to tell you, empty nesters, we do okay. And your eyes pop sometimes when you look at these prices, and we've gotten very good about knowing which day to go to which butcher to get the best deal, because they put things on sale, right? And they do specials, they do loss leaders, and we go in and try to grab it up. And we have 4 or 5 places we go to, and we know where to go to grab what we need to get for that day. How does someone figure out where the good beef is in their area? And I know this is a tough question, because some people are rural and you don't have as much choice, and so on and so forth. How can they figure out where their beef is coming from and if they're getting good beef?
Well, it is a generalized question. It's hard to answer, and it's different across the country. What I do is I basically just tell people, find a local rancher and strike up a conversation with them. And you can do that in many different ways. Everybody's on freaking Google. I try not to use Google that much, but it's there. And what you can do is you really can do a search for a local rancher. And the best way to kind of narrow that search down is do grass-fed beef. Because if they're local and they're doing something that is good with beef, they're going to start being grass-fed for sure. That simple search will take you down kind of a rabbit hole that you can kind of do some logistics and do some reconnaissance on where you live and the region in which you live, and strike up a conversation with these people. Give them a call. If you have to, go to their place, say you want to come visit, see if they have a food shed. You ask the right questions. You just don't demand things from them. Ranchers are, they're a different breed. They have a different communication structure, and they do have a decentralized form of communicating. They've been through a lot of manipulation and corruption. And if you kind of go up to a rancher, and this is how all this started, I said, you're going to go out and you're going to shake a rancher's hand and you're going to say, thank you. How can you teach me what you do? I want to know more about what you do. And you have a rancher that wants to strike up that conversation with you. You found your rancher, because he's going to be very proud about what he does and because he puts his life into it. And we need to understand that they are out there and that it's possible for everybody to do this. And if you can't physically go out there, hit your Google, hit your Brave browser, hit whatever duck you have. And then you go and you find a rancher and you strike up that conversation. You don't have to buy beef from them the very first time. What you've done is you started an education process that's going to get you to the source of the seed of pure animal protein. And that's the biggest thing that we're lacking right now in our society. And it's the number one thing that they're coming after, because there is a war on meat going on there. And we have to basically change our consumption models in the way that it involves knowing a rancher or going through something like the beef initiative. And so that's why I did it. I wanted to have input and output. It's a bridge. It's a gateway to say, hey, I need to find somebody. If you can't find somebody in the beef initiative, well, you can add somebody as well. I'm getting everybody across the nation to come to the beef initiative. There's a producer section there, and you can go to that producer section. And if you do know somebody, you use a butcher, you use a rancher, you use a animal protein provider, you can put them in the beef initiative, and you're going to allow other people to find those producers. That's the best thing that we can do for these guys, because this type of database is not some mainstream marketing media database crap that you're going to get out there that's been paid and bought by Google. This is going to be crowdsourced. This is open source crowdsourcing, and this is how we're going to get more people aware and how you basically do approach a rancher. And that's having a lot of success. And people are starting to understand that that is very valuable information, and people want to contribute. So that's one small step right there that we're doing, that I see a lot of people that are very interested in it. And then after they do that, they come to the beef initiative, they're going to learn where we're coming from. That we're in the beginning, it was basically identifying and labeling what food intelligence is. A lot of people don't know what it is because we don't know where our food comes from. With the beef initiative, it's evolved into something that, with all the ranchers that I work with, every one of them has said, this is a health initiative is what this is. And they're talking about the beef initiative. And so what we're trying to make people understand is that we're doing a vertical integration back into our human health. And it starts with the soil. It starts with the grass, the cow, the producer, the processor, the supplier, the market access to you and me. And with the ranchers that I'm working with, we have proof of work. We're doing that. We're performing that service right now to everybody. And more ranchers are coming on board, and they're wanting to be a part of this decentralized platform that's based on sound money, sound food, sound communications, and sound health. And basically, I'm creating this production this year, and I'm going to make people understand that there is a great American health initiative going on right now, and it's being led by the American rancher. We're going to fight back with basically consumers knowing that they have new market access to pure animal protein. Once we get this buzz going, which it's starting to pick up here, we're going to be able to identify and educate the lack of understanding about where food comes from and how corrupt our food industry really is, and that food now has been weaponized against our health.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Over the time of this podcast, I let very few sponsors through. People always say, why don't you get more sponsors? I have sponsors begging to come onto the show. Mm-hmm. And in the past few years, I've had 2 different, beef companies where the beef shows up at your door, right?
Sure.
And, these companies do well. And the problem is that for whatever reason, they go away from advertising, or something happens. The second woman I had has a big thing out in California, and then something happened with her company through the pandemic or whatever. People are always begging me to take on another advertiser on the show so they know where to get the beef from. And look, I just haven't come up with a good one yet. I keep
Right.
thinking, oh, I can go with this guy or that guy. I don't want to mention any of them on the air right now, but because people just, they don't want to go do the work. They want me to say, Vin, go vet these people and then tell me about these people. And then I will go by and it'll show up at my door. That's where people are today. Can it show up at my door? And eventually I'm going to get another one. I just have to go vet another place. But you have this beef initiative. People could find out where their meat is coming from nationwide. Is that what I'm hearing?
Bet. Oh, hell yeah. I mean, the rancher, you can have contact with that rancher and you can have that conversation. I tell everybody, you come to the beef initiative and you're going to meet a rancher. What you're going to do is you guys are going to start exchanging Christmas cards every year because your families are going to become friends.
All right, let's say I lived in Peoria.
Sure.
All right. So, who's in Peoria? If I lived in Peoria, who would you tell me to go to?
I'd have to find Peoria, that's for sure. And I'd have to go out there. That's what I've been doing for the last year, is going and shaking ranchers' hands. And somebody comes to me and says, oh, you don't have anything close to Peoria. Well, no, I don't. But what we're going to do is I'm going to find that rancher for you.
Place.
Right. Well, it's true. I mean, it's a big country and this is different demographics.
Yeah.
But that's what people are used to. And those databases are so fraught with basically things that don't, they're not real information. And so what you will be able to do right now, you can buy beef from the Beef Initiative nationwide, so you can get your beef. In that meantime, you buy beef from us, then guess what? Another rancher is going to be coming in from Illinois, Montana, all the way from Wisconsin to Maine. And that's what we're doing right now. This is grass-fed and grassroots. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's because it is a production and people are contributing. So it's exciting when we get somebody from, Illinois that says, hey, we're going to join the Beef Initiative. What do we have to do? What do we have to do? It's like, man, you just tell your story. This is a voice. We are a gateway to you having a voice again. You want to be on my podcast? Come on my podcast. Let's talk about what you do. I want to show you some respect because I know we're going to have a value for value exchange because you're going to try to feed the community in which you live in. How do we do that with you? It's an education. It is an ongoing conversation that you're having. It becomes a lifestyle. And whenever I told people from the beginning what the Beef Initiative was, I said, this is a new international lifestyle that's going to start right here in Texas. And you're going to be able to understand the history of our food and our animal protein. We're going to romanticize it a little bit. We're going to put a little pop culture into it. But what you're going to do is you're going to yearn to be a part of this because it is about your health. It is about saving children's lives here. And so people are starting to understand that message is going to rip, it's going across the nation right now because we're having these conferences and they're picking up steam. So what we're going to make people understand, this is low time preference here. This is not shopping on Amazon. This is changing a consumption model that you're kind of used to, but you're going to come with it with a little bit of patience and a little bit of yearning for new education.
You know what you guys need? You need Sam Elliott.
Yes, we do, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we need that one hook. I mean, that's a hook, right? You need that one hook that you get that understands, Adam Curry. I mean, he's a good friend of mine. He's been helping us out on No Agenda, and he mentioned me, him and Joe Rogan are pretty good friends and they had a podcast. And so they talked about food intelligence and, they talked about Texas Slim and then, Glenn Beck, they've heard my name. So people are starting to, it's coming out, but I started this a little over 2 years ago. I've traveled around the United States. I've been to North Dakota and back to Texas to the Gulf at least twice. I've been east and I've been west. I was out there doing the groundwork to figure out where we were in this nation with food. I was in the food pantries. I was, cooking food for homeless people in churches. And then I even embedded myself into a harvest company. And I went on harvest and I was interviewing people and they didn't know they were being interviewed. And I was talking to where's this grain going? Why are you now basically harvesting 50% rapeseed and 50% wheat? Now look where we are with grains. Why is rapeseed canola making better yields and higher profit margins than wheat is right now? Because our food system is corrupt. and nutrition has nothing to do with it. And so by doing all this groundwork and everything, the beef initiative is something that is it's not bought and paid for. This has been out of my pocket and people helping to volunteer. And this is a true grassroots movement.
I can't thank you enough for doing what you're doing out there, Slim. Please keep it up. If I didn't have to get on a live thing here on Instagram in a few minutes, I could probably go another hour with you.
Well, we should do that because there's plenty to come ahead.
If you ever want to come back on, have me on your show, whatever you want to do, I'm always here to talk. This is all I do.
Exactly.
So, we could just keep this conversation going. Tell people where to find you.
Sure. The one best place to find me as far as Texas Slim is on Twitter, and it's at Modern T Man. And then of course, beefinitiative.com. It tells everything that we've got going on here. We have a bone broth challenge right now. We're doing a lot. We're working with the medical community. Texas Slim's Vision is the podcast. And we've got a YouTube channel. It's the Beef Initiative YouTube channel. So people can really get some good kind of content to get up to speed. One thing I'd like people to do is do a search on the harvest of deception. And that was what I first started writing about last September. And that really got a lot of people's attention. And there's a lot of good food intelligence in there. I can kind of tell my story.
Good. So folks, go check all of that out. You know what to do with me. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go to Amazon, please go to VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner. It puts a little coal on the fire and it gets our train down the track. We also have a superfan page at VinnieTortorich.com. You can check that out. I would really appreciate that. Kind of works like PBS. That's how we keep the lights on around here. Go check out everything that Texas Slim is doing over at the Beef Initiative. And that's it. So on behalf of Texas Slim, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Oh, you know what? He reminded me of something. Everything reminds me of a song. He reminded me of this song. So on behalf of Slim, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with Charlene.